everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I've got 5 Christmas DIYs to share with you that I think you're really going to enjoy. These are all Ralph Lauren inspired, so if you want to know how to make them, stick around. I'll show you how. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Right next one. Okay, for this one is super simple. I'm just going to take some plaid fabric and I'm going to cover some candles with these. And once I got it long enough to go wrap around the candle, I'm going to hem up the bottom edge on both sides. That way I'll have a nice finished edge on each side. Now I'm using pillar candles for this. I don't intend to burn these. If you do burn these, you probably want to make your fabric a little smaller so it just goes around the center. But I'm just using these totally for decoration. And I'm also going to hem up one side. That way everything will be finished once you get it glued to your candle. And then I'm just going to center this on the center of my candle, wrap it around, and then I'm going to apply Mod Podge to hold this on. Just kind of make sure that you do get it even, and then you can start applying your Mod Podge and gluing your fabric to your candle. Now if it oozes out a little bit, don't worry about it because it does dry clear and you're not going to see it. And I'm not putting a lot of glue on here. I'm just putting enough just for it to hold in place. And I'm kind of stretching this as I'm going. You want to make sure that you do get it pretty tight. And then you just keep going all the way around till you have it completely glued in, and then we'll finish it off with a little bit of hot glue. Now pillar candles, they're going to burn down inside of the candle, not on the outside. But if you are going to burn this candle, you might want to come down a little bit farther from the top to put your fabric. Or just maybe even do a smaller strip right around the center. You know, once I get it here, I'm just going to make sure that I do get it pretty straight, and I'm going to start applying some hot glue to attach the back of it. Just kind of overlap it. If you have to stretch it a little bit, that's fine. Try not to burn yourself like I just did. And then we're just going to go down the center to glue the rest of it. Next, I'm going to take some parchment paper. I'm going to wrap it around my candle, and then I'm just going to take a heat source and lightly go over this. This will start helping it melt into the candle. You don't want to do too much on this, just enough to make it a little bit tacky so it does stay on there. To decorate this, I got this emerald green ribbon from Amazon, and then I got my little wreaths that are below it from Michael's. And I'm just going to take a ribbon and I'm just going to tie it right around the center into a bow. And these little wreaths I get at Michael's each year, you're just going to take the little adhesive backing off of it. It peels off pretty easy, and I am taking the bows off of them too. I don't like these with the bows, so I always just remove the bows and remove the adhesive backing. And we're going to start by just putting our ribbon right around the center, and we're just going to tie it into a real pretty bow. This was a quick and easy project, and I think these turned out so cute. Just kind of get it lined up and then just tie a little bow. And then just try to make sure that the green velvet part sticks out where you can see it. Any of the other, you're going to have to kind of turn them so that they do just have the velvet part on the top. Okay, next I'm just going to take one of those wreaths. I'm going to put some glue all the way around it, and then I'm going to push it onto my ribbon so that the center part comes through the bow. Look how cute that looks. Next I'm taking some little wood slices that I got on Amazon, and I'm going to take some wood filler and fill in all the holes and the cracks. Just take some time on this part. Make sure that you do get all that filled in because you want it to be a solid piece. And then take a sanding pad and sand it after you're done to get all the excess wood filler off of there. I'm going to take some burnt umber paint, and I'm just going to paint the top of these. Now, don't paint the sides and don't paint the bottom. We're just painting the side. Well, you can paint the bottom if you want to. I'm not going to. I'm just painting the very top of it. Next, I'm just going to take my candle. I'm going to put hot glue on the bottom, and I'm going to center it onto my round. This gave it a nice cabin look. Okay, and that's how those turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Okay, for this one, I'm using some of the Nutcrackers from Hobby Lobby. They come 5 in a pack, and I'm going to take these outside and I'm going to spray paint them with an espresso paint. Okay, next I'm going to take some folk art metallic espresso paint and a sponge, and I'm going to dab this onto my Nutcrackers. I'm getting most of the paint off and then dabbing it on. This is what's going to start making it look like it's a metal. And I'm going to add quite a bit of the paint on here. And then this espresso paint against that espresso spray paint, it almost looks like it's gold, but it's not. It's just really a nice little brown color on it. Be sure and get your base too. And then I'm going to do all my other ones exactly the same way. And then to finish out the metal look, you're just going to take some black paint and you're going to sponge it on here too. Now you're not going to put it as much as you did of the other one. You just kind of lightly go around it just to get a little bit to blend it together. This is what finishes it off to give it that complete metal look. And I'm going to do all the other ones exactly the same way. Okay, next I'm taking a piece of wood that measures 1 3/4 by 1 3/4, and I'm going to cut it into sections. We're going to stair step our nutmegs on a platform, so we're going to start off with small and go up to larger. Okay, so I'm going to mark that at 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to mark it at 1 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to mark it at 3 inches and mark it at 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to mark it at 6.5 inches. And then I'm just going to take this outside and I'm going to cut it on my saw. Now I'm just using a small chop saw to do this. This is a great saw if you don't have one. I got this at Lowe's. I'll give you the link for it. It's a great little tool to have, and it's not so dangerous and intimidating as some of the bigger saws. So you could actually do this. It's not that hard to do. So I'm just going to paint these with some acrylic paint. And I'm just painting the sides and the top of them only. And then to attach my nutcrackers to them, I'm just going to use some hot glue and attach each one of them to the little blocks. And just kind of make sure that you are getting them pretty centered in the center on those. And I'm doing all of them exactly the same way. And if you're going to make these to sell, I would highly recommend using E6000 glue instead of hot glue. Next, I'm just cutting a little greenery sprig, and I'm just going to attach it to each one of these. I think greenery added to any kind of Christmas ornament really does add a little bit of more festive look to it. And I'm just going to put it right on his arm that's not holding anything, just straight up, and I'm doing it on all of my little nutcrackers. Next, to finish them off, I'm just taking a brown sheer ribbon, and I'm just going to tie a bow right onto the front, and I'm going to do that on all of them. Then from sliding down, I'm just putting a little dollop of glue right underneath each one of the little bows. And that was pretty much it. This was a pretty simple little project. Okay, next you're going to take a 2 3/4 inch terracotta pot, just roll it in your fabric to make sure you have enough to cover it completely. And then we're going to take a bead of hot glue, run it down the side to glue that to start. And then we're going to use Mod Podge to Mod Podge the rest of this. So just add a generous amount, not too much because you don't want a lot of oozing, but put like a layer of it. And then we're going to start shaping it around this glass or around this terracotta pot. And you're going to press it down as you're doing it because you want to make sure that the ridge from the top part of that terracotta pot shows through. Just kind of really smooth it out with your hand and then just keep going around till you have it completely glued in. And then we're going to finish it out at the end by folding over the edge and then hot gluing that in. But you want some hanging over the top and you want some hanging over the bottom because we're going to actually put this inside of the terracotta pot and then we're going to cut it for the bottom. Just try to make sure you get it as even as possible. And then when you get to this point, you want to cut your fabric so it is straight up and down. And that way we're going to be able to fold over the edge and have a nice finished seam that is straight up and down, not at a diagonal. So get that cut off and then we're just going to fold that over and we're going to glue that in. But really try to get that line straight. You're just going to cut off the bottom. You're going to leave a little bit hanging over because we are going to fold it under. And then on the top part, we're just going to cut around here so that you have about a 1 inch overhang all the way around the top. Just try to make sure you do get that pretty straight. So I'm going to take some hot glue and I'm just going to tuck this down in here and glue it in. You just want to make sure that the top edge does not have any kind of a buckle on it. You want to really take some time on this, pulling it tight as you're going around. And then we're going to cover up the inside of this here in a little bit, so don't worry so much about it, what it looks like. You just want to make sure that the top ledge doesn't have any buckling at the top. You want to make sure that it is perfectly smooth. So when you get the top part done, we're going to flip it over and then we are going to cut about 1/4 of an inch away from the bottom of the terracotta pot. And then we're just going to start gluing that in, and you want to make sure that this is flat. So if you have any buckling area, put a little bit of glue underneath it and keep going till you have it all the way glued around, because you do want this to set straight up on the table. You don't want it to lean. So just make sure you spend some time on this part to get this really glued in. Next, to cover the bottom, I've just taken a piece of craft foam that measures about 1 1/4 inches in diameter, and I'm just painting it with a dark blue paint. And then to speed up the drying process, I'm just going to use my embossing gun, and then I'm just going to glue this right down to the bottom of my flower pot. This will just kind of finish out the bottom. To clean up the inside, I just got these little seed cups from Dollar Tree. You can get these at Hobby Lobby also, and I'm just gluing it inside. Now, I did decide to come back in and paint it afterwards, so I would paint mine ahead of time if I did it the next time. And I'm just painting it with a black paint so you can't really see down inside of here. Next, I'm going to take a garland and I'm going to take it apart. If you just start twisting the wires, you can get all the little pieces off of there because they're just small pieces that are put in there with the wire. And I'm going to take a lot of these off of here. So you're going to need quite a few. Next, I'm using a 4-inch cone I got at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to start wrapping this garland around it. I'm just going to glue each piece around it till I have it completely covered up all the way to the top. So be sure and put it as close as you can so that you don't see the white, but you are going to use quite a few of these. I mean, I didn't nearly use a whole garland, but I did use, several pieces that I cut off of there. And you're going to keep going until you have it completely covered up. Just make sure that you do push them down together lower so that you don't see any of the white. And if you wanted to, you could have painted this green ahead of time. I didn't, and I didn't see any white on it. So just kind of keep going until you have it completely covered. I'm going to kind of go fast on this so you can see what I'm doing. And you can use any kind of green garland you want to. I mean, if you had one that was like a rope garland that goes all the way around, you could just wrap this that way too. They do have some of that at Hobby Lobby. But just continue, just make sure that you are pressing it down good as you're going because you want to make sure that you don't see any of the white. When you get to the very top, we're just going to take another piece, wrap it around it, and then we're going to put a piece over the top part of the very nub of that tree. So just get this one wrapped around good, and then we're going to put one right over the top. So you're just going to cut a piece off of another garland and then just wrap that around and glue that in. You just want to make sure that this entire tree is completely covered. Okay, next we're going to give it a nice haircut to kind of make sure that it is pretty even. We're cutting quite a bit of this off. If I were to do this again, I would just take it outside and put it over the trash can and do it outside. Because this did end up going everywhere by the time I got it done because this stuff sticks to your hands and everything. But just kind of really give it a nice haircut till it's almost smooth. And then you want to make sure that you get the bottom pretty straight too. You don't want to have any overhanging on the bottom. Next, I'm taking a 1/4 inch by 6-inch dowel stick. I sharpened both ends, and then I'm using some pipe insulation that's about 1 1/2 inches in diameter, and I'm just going to glue it down in the bottom. This is what's going to hold our tree into our flower pot. Okay, then to dress up my tree a little bit, I'm just going to add a few little rhinestones to it. Just put a little bit of hot glue on there, and then I'll give you the link for this little tool. It just grabs them so easy, and it's not hard to get them off of there once they hit the glue. And I'm not going to put a lot of these on here. I'm probably going to put maybe at the most, maybe 10 per tree, but just enough to give it a little bit of a little glisten. Next, for the top of my tree, I'm just going to take a little star that I've had. I painted these a long time ago, and I'm just going to put it right on top. Okay, next I'm going to take some of that same velvet ribbon. I'm just going to tie it right around the top part of this flower pot, and I'm just going to tie it into a bow. And then I'm just going to cut my ribbon a little bit short to even them out. And then I'm going to take another one of those little wreaths and I'm going to put it right in the center and push it down to where the center of the bow comes through it. Next, to finish it out, I'm just going to put hot glue all the way around the bottom edge of it. And I'm just going to push this down into the styrofoam until it dries. Just kind of hold it tight because you want to make sure it stays in there good. Okay, and that was a pretty simple project. Let me know what you think. This next one, I'm using some deer that I've had, and it has a flocking on it, and I'm just going to peel this off. I didn't realize that you could do this until I started playing with it, but you could get all the flocking off of all of these. It's just like a sheet of flocking, and you can use any deer you want to use for this project. I'm using these 2 white ones and then one that I got at Dollar Tree last year, but just Spend some time and just get all your flocking off until it's completely smooth piece of plastic. Now that I got them all cleaned up, I'm going to take them outside and spray paint them with some espresso brown paint. Next, to highlight the antlers, I'm just taking some gold rub and buff and a soft rag, and I'm going to put some of this onto my workstation, just kind of rub it on there because I don't want to have so much on here, and then I'm just going to start rubbing it onto the antlers. You just need a little bit just onto the antlers only. Don't put it all over the body. I did that on one of them a minute ago. I had to take it back outside and paint it because it looked kind of weird. And you don't have to use a lot of this rub and buff, just a little bit goes a long way. And I'm doing all three of them exactly the same way. And I am going to put some on the back of them too. And I'm starting just light, and then I'm gradually adding more. I don't want to put too much at first because you can't get it back off unless you paint it. So just put a little bit, start blending it in a little bit, start rubbing it in, and it'll start polishing up nicely. Okay, then to dress them up, I'm just going to take a velvet ribbon, the same one I used on the previous two. And I'm just going to wrap it across here like this and then just cut this off. And then I'm going to glue that on right there, and I'm going to add one of those little wreaths right there to match it. Just cut all three of them exactly the same length. This was a real quick and easy project, and you could use any kind of deer that you want to. But just wrap it around, cross it over in the center, and then we're just going to glue it right to the deer. Just try to make sure you do get it pretty even. And I'm just going to lift that up once I get it where I want it, and I'm just going to glue it in. And then I'm just going to add one of the little wreaths right over the top. For the smaller one, I'm going to do the same thing, but I did trim this one just a little bit because it was a little bit long because his neck wasn't near as big around as the other one. Just kind of cross it over like that. And then I'm going to put a wreath over the top of that one as well. Just kind of spend some time getting these pretty straight. And I'm just going to glue right around this one and put this one on as well. Now for the third one, I'm going to move it to the side. Since the head of the deer was facing sideways just a little bit, I am going to tilt it to the side a little bit. This was really a quick little project. And I think these turned out so cute. If you can cluster them in clusters of 3, they really do look good this way. All right, and that was pretty much it for that little project. Okay, I think these turned out so cute. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next one, I'm just going to take some Christmas balls. I'm going to take a piece of styrofoam, and I'm just taking some little dowel sticks that I've sharpened, and I'm just going to stick my ornaments on here, and that way I can take them outside and paint them pretty easily without the paint puddling at the bottom of them. And I'm just going to paint them with a white primer paint. Next, I'm taking some plastic paint in the color Espresso, and I'm going to mix it with some baking powder to give it a little bit of a texture. And you don't need a lot of the baking powder, just enough to get a little bit of a thickness and a little plaster feel to your paint. Just get it mixed in really, really good. Now I'm just using a sponge brush to apply this, and you are going to have to do 2 coats. And the reason I primered it first is because it is a little bit easier to get a couple of coats on there when you have a solid color instead of just a clear ornament. So just continue to brush until you get it completely covered. You want to let them dry between your 2 coats. And then once you start your next coat, it should cover this completely. So you're really only going to need 1 coat on this, and then once you get these painted, just set them aside and let them dry really well. Next, I'm going to take some espresso that's a metallic color, and I'm going to use a sea sponge, and I'm going to sponge it onto my ornaments. This is going to give it the more metal look to it and make it a little bit more rustic looking. I really like the way these turned out, and you want to kind of twist your hand as you're doing it. You don't want the same pattern everywhere. So kind of twist it as you're going, or twist the ornament as you're going. And I'm only going to put one coat on this. So I'll show you how heavy I did get this one. And then I'm just going to sit it back on those little sticks and let that dry real well. And I'm going to do 5 ornaments because I'm going to put these all in a bowl together as a decor piece. Just gives them a little bit of a luxury look to them. Okay, see how those look? I think those look really good. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next, I'm just going to take some of that espresso paint, the one for plastic, and I'm going to paint these. Now, this took several coats to do this way. Somebody told me if you mix Mod Podge with it, it'd make it stick a little bit better. I tried that at first, and honestly, I didn't see any difference. So just kind of build it up. Once you get your first coat, you can do it pretty quick and easy. I'm taking some of the ornaments that look like little bulbs, and then I'm going to stick some dowel sticks and some styrofoam. These are 12-inch dowel sticks, and then I'm going to tie them up a string across each one of them to kind of hang them like they're on a clothesline. This made it where they didn't touch and they were lifted up so you could paint them just like we did the bulbs in the first video. Just kind of line them up there, and then when you tie your other string on the other side, then you can separate them and take them outside and paint them. Paint these with a gold metallic paint. I'm going to paint the top of them and the bulb part too. Next to texture them, I'm just going to use some of this gilded gold paint. I got it Michael's, and I am going to wear gloves because this is an oil-based paint, and I'm just going to pour some onto a piece of plastic wrap. And then you're going to kind of mix it up a little bit by taking your plastic wrap and kind of open it and shutting a little bit, and then start adding it to your ornaments. This is a good way to get a little bit of texture, not too much texture, and it did have a nice color difference between the two golds. So start off by getting it on here like this because this does tend to dry faster, and then start sponging it on with your other piece of plastic wrap. This way it's not going to be real even everywhere, and you're not going to have big globs everywhere. This worked out really good. This is a good way to do the texturing on these, but you definitely want to wear gloves on this. And then you want to put those aside and let them dry really well. And I hope you can see the texture. It did really give it a nice texture. For those have dried, I'm going to take a chocolate brown metallic paint, and I'm going to take a sea sponge, and I'm going to sponge these on. And I'm not going to put them heavy on here. Kind of get most of your water out of your sponge first. Dab it on a paper towel, and then start going around your sponge. This will give it a lot of depth, and it'll make it look so pretty. And then just put them aside to dry. Just, you don't want a ton of the brown on there, just enough to kind of give it a little bit of accent color. Okay, and this is how those turned out. I think they turned out so pretty. Decorate these. I just got a galvanized plate, and I'm going to lay some of this greenery that I have. I actually took this off of a garland that I had. You just kind of pull it right out. It works really good. And then I'm going to end up cutting all the stems off of it so that they're not showing. Just going to kind of fluff this up a little bit so it's not all looks like it's just laid out there, and then I'm going to embed my ornaments into here. So just kind of tuck them into the greenery a little bit, and then I got some little gold bells from Hobby Lobby that I'm going to put in here as well. So just randomly put them in there, fill it up, and then put your gold ones in there, and then this will look really pretty on a centerpiece on a table. If you wanted to, you could actually center a candle in the center and then put all this around it. But I'm just kind of tucking them in just for table decor. And that was pretty much it. That was an easy one. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I hope it gave you some inspiration. If you like these kind of videos, be sure and give me a like, subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when I have a new video upload. And don't forget to hype because it really does help my channel. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And if nobody's told you today, you're awesome. See you next time. Thanks for watching.